Hello and welcome to the Banker's preview of Sibos 2015 in Singapore. I'm Brian Caplen, editor of The Banker. I'm with Gottfried Leibbrandt, who's the chief executive of SWIFT. We're discussing the Singapore agenda. Gottfried, this year the Banker's Technology Projects of the Year was won by SWIFT for your KYC Registry. And this is a product that you've only had since 2014. Have you been surprised by the rapid take-up of it?
We have. We've welcomed our 1,000th customer recently on it, and we see it meet a real demand. This is something that it's a shared cost for the industry at the end of the day. It's a must-do. It will not be a competitive advantage to get this KYC data right. So banks are really looking for a common solution, and we've seen that our offering in a space that we know well, correspondent banking, really fitted a need. You can go to the repository, get the data you need on all of your correspondence. With an infrastructure around it that allows banks to first publish only the data that they feel comfortable with. So it has a certain quality stamp on it, if you will, checked by the banks themselves, and published to the sub-community of banks that they deal with. And we find that filling a real need in the banking community.
Okay, and you also do a sanctions screening service. So give me a bit of an update on how that's progressing.
That's progressing quite well. That filled a need initially for the smaller banks. Most banks have in-house screening services. Smaller banks typically face a large investment there. So what we offer is for them to route all of their SWIFT payments over a sanctions filter that we host. If there's a hit, clearly we cannot judge it. It goes back to the bank. They will then have to do the repairs and the investigations in case of positives. We saw that fill a real need for the smaller banks, but we're now seeing uptake also on medium-sized banks, and we're even having discussions with some of the larger banks as a backup to their in-house filters, as a way to complement the service for some of the smaller branches that aren't connected to the main filters. So we're seeing very solid uptake on that front as well.
Okay, now what both of these things do is they generate data. Okay, or they make use of the data banks have got. And there's been a lot of discussion about big data and how banks can use this more effectively and efficiently. I mean, how well do you think they're doing? It's a massive task, isn't it?
It's a massive challenge. It's also a massive field. I mean, if you go to reference data, that could mean anything from stock prices and forex prices down to data on correspondent banking and big codes and what have you. We've typically been active in that field with the big directory that we've expanded to now contain all sorts of other information related to the LEI codes that are attached to it and currency codes, etc. We're linking that a little bit to what we're doing in KYC to really have a broader offering for banking data for our customers, and that will be a growing field, and also a challenge for banks. It's always a discussion about golden copies and which of that data is still valid. Do you have the latest version of it? So it's not an easy one to manage, which is why there's value in providing it.
And do you think that banks are much more willing to share their data with other banks now and start to realise that it's not so much about a competitive edge in the data field, it's more about working together as an industry to raise standards overall?
We do, and I think one of the side effects of the whole regulation challenge posed to banks, all these regulations that they have to comply with, is that banks are saying this has now become such a huge cost, it doesn't give us a competitive advantage. We really have to look for ways to keep it manageable, and joint solutions clearly is a way to do that. That's the only way to prevent it from sucking up investments that they desperately need in other areas like technology, fintech, and what have you. You really don't want to spend your scarce investment dollars on something that you could be doing jointly with the others in the industry.
Now, recently SWIFT announced that it was making its reference data available to national communities as well, so outside of the banking system. So what's the thinking behind that?
The thinking behind that is our reference data, we've always made that available to people that are not connected to the SWIFT network. So one of the big uptakes on, for example, the SEPA directory that we've made, which links BICs to IBANs, one of the big take-ups of that has been among corporate customers. As we've gone through the SEPA migration, corporates have to worry about what's the IBAN I need from our counterparties. That directory filled a need there, and most of those corporates aren't corporates that are connected to SWIFT. So we've always seen reference data as something that goes beyond the pure network. The same would be going for standards. My standards and all of our standards information, the ISO documentation, we make available to everybody beyond the people connected to the network, and that's the same thinking that's behind this initiative to work with local communities.
Okay, Gottfried, thank you very much.